Hi, welcome to the Diablo Podcast. On the show this week, I am joined by the Eliminator.
Greetings.
And Nineball.
How's it going?
We are going to talk in this segment of the show about the auction house and trade system speculation and some general economy issues in Diablo III. And this is obviously a lot of speculation since they haven't actually announced an auction house feature yet, although it seems we may get that pretty soon, like August 2nd. We'll get into that in a second. First of all, this was your topic idea, Eliminator. Why is your area of interest in the auction house? What are you hoping to see, or what do you think we'll get?
It's mostly a curiosity of mine to see where they go with it, if they're going to go with the standard route that they've picked for WoW, or are they going to go for something a little more elaborate.
And you guys both play World of Warcraft, which has an auction house. Why don't you talk over each other in completely confusing fashion and explain briefly what the auction house in World of Warcraft works like?
Blah, 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 blah. Oh, wait, that was your turn.
It's a place where people can go to, trade items. I put up item for whatever price that I want to mark it as, and then if you think that that's a fair price, you can go through and purchase it. It's just a centralized location that's going to be in the game in which to, buy and sell your items instead of like Diablo 2 where you'd have to go to a trading website like the trading forums that is over at, Diablo IncGamers.
Yeah, for people who don't play WoW, how do you access the auction house? Is it done like via an NPC in the game, or is it some sort of external function?
It's the NPCs in the game. They actually have a building that you can go into and interact with the NPC, and it will bring up a menu, and you can access all that information through them.
You find an item you want to sell. You go to one of the auctioneers and you somehow put the item like in escrow and you set a price?
Yes. They're all connected. There's, multiple factions. There's the Horde and the Alliance, and you can only trade within your particular faction, and then they have, a third one that acts as a go-between for trading between the Horde and the Alliance, but it rarely ever gets used. But if you take an item in one city and list it in the auction house, anybody checking it from any city would be able to see it.
If you look at the auction house, you don't just scroll down an endless list of items. They're separated by item types and price, or can you sort it? What kind of option?
There's a decent amount of selectable options you can interact with on the page or on the pop-up window that it comes up with. Anything from item level to just the quality of the item itself.
It's pretty easy to find what you want, though?
If you know how to spell the item, yeah.
Well, I'm sure I can't imagine Battle.net users having problems with spelling.
Yeah.
Are you pretty satisfied with how the system works, both you guys, in World of Warcraft?
Certain aspects, yes. Other aspects, no.
I would agree with him. There's some certain times where you can find something relatively easy, and then there's other times where you wish you could narrow down your search options to even finer points, but you just don't have those abilities. So
you end up doing a lot of scrolling, or?
For my auction, when I go to the auction house, I actually use, the third-party add-ons that exist within World of Warcraft to do a lot of them. Because one of the things that you can do with a third-party add-on that you can't do with the default Blizzard frame is say I want to go and find a particular item. I'm going and searching, I want to buy a Harlequin crest for, one of my alts. And I go and type it into the little search option that's in the auction house, and I want to search by, the lowest cost or the price percentage, even though the Blizzard UI will support it by just flat price, so I can sort it from cheapest to most expensive, and that works well for an item like that. But now say I want to buy chip gems or something that might be stackable instead of like how chip gems exist in, Diablo, where they each take up one piece of inventory space. Imagine as if they all stacked, and you could have 200 of them as a single item. I want to buy a bulk chip gems. I go in, it will only organize it by actual cost. So the most expensive might be the cheapest per chip gem, because I could buy one for 5 gold, or I could buy 100, for 200 gold, which is actually, cheaper per gem than buying the single individual ones. And it doesn't support that, being able to actually search it by the price percentage.
Any peeves you have about it, Eliminator?
Without the third-party stuff, you have a slight difficulty finding exactly what you want when it comes to bulk items.
Isn't that true of everything in WoW, though? Without third-party add-ons, it's hard.
Well, they have been improving a lot of the standard features over the patches and everything, but it's still one of the weaker things that they still haven't really fixed up.
Is there a role for middlemen in the WoW auction house? I mean, can you buy low and resale high? Do people actually just play the economy like that?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. It's so easy. I mean, I've made considerable amounts of money in World of Warcraft doing exactly that.
Can you sort things by individual sellers? I mean, are there like power sellers kind of things where you can say, I like this guy and he has good stuff. I would just want to look at his auction listings?
You can sort the sellers alphabetically, but you can't actually search for a particular seller.
So there are not individuals who have established themselves as like big time traders and everyone just goes and buys from them?
No, it's
not really.
It's not like how Star Wars Galaxies used to be.
Yeah, like Ultima Online I played that, 15 years ago or something. And you could set up your own vendors, and you just, all the players learned to go and say, this vendor belongs to this player, and he really has a good selection at good prices, kind of thing.
That's how Star Wars Galaxies was kind of like that, too.
But WoW, all the items are just listed at once, so you're competing against everybody else on the realm, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like, try in-game loyalty to buying somebody because he always has the best items versus whoever happens to have it cheapest at that time. You'll see names again and again and again because they keep the auction house stocked with a whole bunch of items and things such as that. But I mean, you're going to go in there and you're just going to buy the cheapest item.
Yeah, because like you guys said, you see every auction on your server at once, so there's no reason. You're not limited to just one guy in one town. You see them all.
Exactly.
I think the only thing that the names do is when you see somebody that's really trying to gouge people, you pick out that name and you say, I'm never buying from this particular guy because he's always overcharging.
What is the currency gold? Do people ever barter, or everything is actually sold for gold in WoW?
Sometimes you can barter. I've traded, depending on the item, if the item is kind of like how in Diablo, if you can trade, like, perfect gems for someone to craft something for you, you could do that. But most of the times it turns out to just be gold.
Have prices changed a lot over time as gold has become less valuable? As mudflation and duping? Well, I guess they're not duping, but gold farming and sales and stuff?
Yeah, you can definitely notice the price of how that's affected the economy going through the years. And it's not just that, because besides buying gold, the only other way is like doing questing and killing mobs. And the longer it goes on, the more total mobs and quests have been done, the more actual total gold has been pushed into the economy. And it all just has to shift around somewhere. And so, people that play the auction house will generally get a larger portion of that than those people that don't.
Yeah, you would start off in the original game, the lowest quality of materials would cost like pennies, like copper. Now they're gold just for the items because of the inflation.
Yeah, I remember back in the original WoW having to work for weeks to try and get 1,000 gold to buy my first mount, and that was kind of like a rite of passage because it was just so hard to make money back then. And then now, I mean, I can make 25,000 gold with a sale of a single high-end item. So it's, one of those things that's just as time has gone on, the prices have inflated.
So if you were starting as a brand new player today, would it just take you forever to have enough gold for anything? Or can people make more gold now as new players?
You make more gold as new players, but you'd still have to work a little bit as you're going up in levels. I mean, as you go up in the levels, you pretty much gain, how should I say, become equal to everyone else in your income rate.
Yeah.
Except that they already have tons of good equipment and have raid, partners and can make more gold more quickly, like Nineball was saying.
Yeah. Well, you don't even really make that much money from raiding. The actual high-end game content, you don't make a terrible amount of money. A lot of the money that you would actually get from killing those bosses, which, they drop a considerable amount more than just the normal mobs that you would kill solo. Most of that goes, into your repair bills and things like that. It's actually the trade skills or the very random world drops is what actually pushes the majority of the income.
And before the first patch, before the first expansion pack, it would actually cost you money just about to go on raids with the repair bills and stuff.
Twink PvP is huge in World of Warcraft, like leveling up a character to only a certain level and then competing with other people of that level. And it caused an inflation in gear, or inflation in the price of the gear, because these best items that you could get for, like, say, a level 18 rogue or level 19 rogue and, things like that, just like shot through the roof, and people started complaining, well, how is anybody that's leveling up at level 19 supposed to do anything if, items are selling for hundreds of times more than what that character would actually accumulate in wealth at that level?
Most of the high-end items in World of Warcraft are binding, right?
Yes. The vast majority of what you would equip is all bound from raids or instances.
So the best trading stuff is not really the best items, because they're not tradable. So your people are mostly trading in materials and such?
Yeah.
Or low-level dueling items and such, like you said?
Yeah, but the vast amount of trade that happens in the auction house is your crafting materials or your consumables for the elixirs that give you, temporary buffs. Each profession can craft an item that's equivalent to anything that you would find in a raid besides the heroic modes. And those sell for rather decent amounts, as well as there's items that will drop in the raids that are BOE, they're bind on equip, so you can trade those in the auction house.
So can you guys imagine what it would be like in WoW if there was no binding, or much less binding? I mean, how would that change the economy for trading? And obviously I'm asking this because we're not going to have binding in Diablo 3.
I don't even know how the system would even function without binding, really.
You would definitely see most items would have a very diminished worth. Most raids, like the group that I raid with, we actually break down the vast majority of gear that we get in the raids into crafting materials, the enchanting materials and things of that nature. If we could actually go through and sell it, I mean, we would be throwing up like 20, 30 items a week into the auction house, as well as all the other raid groups on our server would be. And so, I mean, just that, with the inflation of items in the auction house, all the prices would drop. But even at that point, the amount of people that raid and don't raid, there would always be buyers for it. Because there would be people that just don't have time to raid or don't feel like being in a guild in which to raid, but they still want to equip their characters with high-level items. So the prices would drop, but I would still see people doing it. As a flip side, some of those high-end enchanting materials that require you to break down those high-level items, their price would increase because, there wouldn't be as many being broken down for materials as more items would be sold.
Are you breaking down all the stuff you find raiding because you basically have the items already?
Yeah, no one needs it.
In World of Warcraft, almost all the best items are pre-made for specific classes and builds and such.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what happens once you found everything that's good? I mean, you're not really looking for rares, or, there's no equivalent of rares like in Diablo 3 or Diablo 2, really.
The way the raids work in WoW is as soon as you get all the gear from one raid, you basically go to the next higher level raid because you were not able to even really complete that higher level raid instance because you didn't have the proper gear for it.
But at some point, I mean, you're all max level, and then at some point you've got all the best equipment. You just keep playing because your friends are raiding, or you start an alt, or what?
Yeah, there's a lot of times it's starting alts, or if you like the best of the best, like people like some of the really high-end WoW guilds, they finished all of the raid content, back in February, and I imagine they've all just been kind of twiddling their thumbs up until another few weeks here when the next raid instance comes out. But the vast majority of people that are going through and raiding haven't finished all the heroic modes. My guild hasn't killed all of the heroic modes, and we're ranked really high. I think last time I saw it, we're in like the top 1,000 10-man guilds in the world, and we've only killed like 9 of the 13 bosses. And there's of course like tens of thousands of more guilds that are out there that haven't gotten that far in the 6-7 months since Cataclysm launched. So there's usually always, it's done rather well to where for people to progress, and there's always a new challenge.
The question, obviously, is how will auction houses work in Diablo 2? I mean, in Diablo 3. In theory, we're not going to have towns with NPCs and auctioneers. I mean, I guess that'll be some kind of different interface. Unless they add an auction artisan or something, and somehow that's linked all together.
Artisan.
God damn it.
they add those bread makers in.
Yeah, and the clear spring waters as well. Artisan
wells.
Yes. So what do you guys think? I mean, you know how WoW works. How would you, if you were in charge of setting up the Diablo III auction house, and you know there's no binding, and there's probably not going to be massive towns with hundreds of people in them?
Well, I guess one way would be that they could do it through Battle.net, basically. People could upload items that they've gotten through the game and have like an auction house system very similar to WoW, just through Battle.net. Personally, I would like it. I would wish they'd have the system inside the game, but, I mean, that's one option they could take.
Yeah, they have recently actually broken the auction house to be available outside of World of Warcraft. You can go to your webpage, the World of Warcraft webpage, and actually log into your account and access the auction house, just through your web browser or through the mobile auction house app for Android and iPhone. I would hope that, like Eliminator said, in Diablo 3 that they actually make some sort of in-game appearance for it, for you to be able to access in-game. That actually, just gives a little bit more feeling to the world that it's accessible in there and that it fits, instead of just having to, log out of your game and go to just some Battle.net interface in order to actually go there and trade.
I could very well see them doing something, calling it a bazaar and having it in one of the major towns in Diablo 3, and having kind of vendors that do almost the same thing as the auction house.
Like just some sort of like little guy that stands in a town or follows around with you in your caravan that you can access the trade system through. And just like experience with other games, like in a whole bunch of other MMOs, they all use a similar style auction house. And it's just basically breaks down to, you have a list of all the categories from crafting materials to items, to vanity items, for the dyes, your stuff that you would salvage, the actual items for your character, and then you can break down that from, like your weapons and armor, helmets, and all that other types of stuff, and just a simple, search and find other things of that nature.
Currency is the other big issue. I mean, you guys say that the gold is still pretty much a viable currency in World of Warcraft. And we all know that gold was a viable currency in Diablo 2 for like a week. And then people started using, Stones of Jordan or chip gems or perfect gems, and now it's into high-level runes. But we've never had gold, and they've said they want to make gold a viable economic resource in Diablo 3. You think they'll be able to pull that off in D3?
Yeah, I really think if they don't have gold mean something, then an auction house system like that would completely fail, because you can't do item for item. You can only do gold for item. They would have to, I don't know what they would have to reset the ladder almost like they're doing with Diablo 2.
I think the system would give gold its own value. It's just the implementation of the system itself is what would give gold value. Because if you look at World of Warcraft, there really isn't anything else for you to use gold for. You can use it to buy items from vendors, which is generally they're all useless compared to what you would find in not only just raids, but instances or from quests. There's certain things that you have to buy from vendors, but they're very cheap comparatively. You're talking like 100 gold versus, a couple thousand gold that you might spend on a week with your food and other consumables that you would need for a raid. It's very paltry, or repair costs, which again is very, very minimal compared to what you're actually using to buy all of your crafting materials and items from the auction house. It's the auction house itself that gives gold its value. And if they implement an auction house that only uses gold in Diablo 3, that would be the reason why people would give gold value, is because it can give them items.
Good point.
Okay, I guess we'll see how that goes. It's interesting with, we've had currencies in Diablo 2, but obviously they've not been gold currencies. It's been Stones of Jordan or runes or something like that. And I guess I'm trying to think how you could transition. I mean, it's tough with Diablo 2 because duping has kind of been, the elephant in the room in terms of any economic system.
Mm-hmm.
But if somehow there was never any more duping in Diablo 2 and you could have an auction house with gold, would it just be based, would runes kind of translate into the gold? Suddenly Vexes are worth, 500,000 gold or something like that.
Probably.
But I mean, gold is so easy to acquire. I don't think it would work the way the game is now.
Yeah.
They just need. Imagine if gold were like a tenth as common in Diablo 2 as it is. If all the prices for item sales dropped, and if a big gold stack for a monster with a gold find on your character was like 50 gold or 80 gold or something. Just trying to envision how it might be in Diablo 3, where item sales are much less valuable, and you don't really sell items. You end up salvaging a lot of them, and the gold pickups you get from monsters are much smaller than we see in D2. And if there's no duping, that's a lot of ifs.
I think for people that have played Diablo games, it's almost such a foreign concept for them to understand all those things.
Yeah, I can understand how people would have a problem visualizing it given what Diablo 2's trading system has been like. But as soon as you walk into that town or log into that chat room or whatever, and you go to the auction house and you see that one item that you absolutely have to have, that last piece that you need for your set, or that one legendary crafting material that you need to complete that high-end crafting item that you want, suddenly gold has a value.
There's never been any big duping problems in World of Warcraft?
I don't think I've ever heard any stories of duping in World of Warcraft.
There were some very early in,
yeah.
Before Expansion Pack 1, there were some duping, but they took care of that really quickly.
Just running a whole bunch of bots to go out and farm crafting materials and then sell massive amounts of crafting materials, because we've got 100 farmers running out there, going and mining or picking herbs.
And speaking of bots and farming, have you guys had any experience with RMT, with people actually selling items for real cash money?
Oh yeah, all the time in WoW.
Yeah, it's prevalent on all the servers. There's bots that will sit in the main cities and spam in the trade channels trying to sell gold.
Have you guys bought or sold, or will you admit to it?
I sold somebody. I sold a friend of mine 60,000 gold one time, and he bought me a copy of Killzone 2.
I'll have to let Bashiak know about that. What's your account name?
Yeah.
I've never used it. I know a friend that used it to level up a character because he didn't want to level up a character, but that was the only interaction I've ever seen with them and stuff.
Yeah, I had a couple of friends in one of my old guilds that paid to have their characters leveled, and a couple months later, both of their accounts have gotten hacked, and now every couple of months their accounts get hacked again and again and again. So it's
the gift that keeps on giving.
Exactly.
We see a lot of the Eastern MMORPGs, which is always an awkward word to say. Item shops, item sales, paying to level up are very common in most of those games. That's kind of how they're built from the ground up. But it's still very uncommon in Western MMORPGs, and Blizzard has never allowed it in any of their games. Are you guys morally opposed to it? Do you think it would be horrible if it was implemented in any way? Are you glad that people can't just spend $50 and buy a sparkle pony to ride around on? Although I guess they did sell actually a sparkle pony in WoW at one point, right?
Yeah, they do. I think the way that Blizzard does it is probably the best way that you can do it for a game. Is that any of the items that you do for the microtransactions is solely vanity. Doesn't have any real effect on gameplay. And, I'm glad that Blizzard has opposed actually doing any of those types of things in their game, of being able to, use real money transactions to equate to actual real power in the game.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would be very upset if they said, oh, well, now you can just pay $25 and instantly become 60th level or 80th level or whatever.
And yet you both have friends who have essentially done that. Is it different when it's your friend and not some random guy?
I didn't agree with.
Chirp.
I didn't agree with him doing it, but I mean, if he wants to do it, that's his prerogative. I'm not going to go and rat him out. And
yeah, it's like if someone else does it, it doesn't really affect me in any way, shape, or form. But I'm glad at least that Blizzard doesn't officially support it.
People are doing it anyway. Obviously, I mean, you see item spammers and gold sailors spamming in town all the time.
Yeah.
And some companies have actually implemented this. Blizzard doesn't do it because they don't need to do it. I mean, they have a huge paying audience who actually, like you guys, would not want to keep playing the game if they started selling stuff for cash. But a lot of companies have a different approach because, economic realities.
Yeah, I think it just a lot of people that are playing Blizzard games would probably lose a lot of respect for Blizzard if they just started selling the items or selling stuff themselves. I mean, I'm surprised Bobby Kotick isn't listening to this and saying, ooh, that's a great idea, we should start doing this so we can get more money, but...
The question that comes up all the time is, there are 13-year-olds who have, 16 hours a day to play the game. And then there's adults who have a family and a real job and have an hour a day to play the game. And if all the really cool, fun stuff is in the end game and you be level 80 and have great equipment or whatever, whatever the game may be, then it's like, well, if I work 8 hours a day at my law firm or something, why can't I spend an hour of my pay and get a really cool character from some 13-year-old who's got all day to play the game? Like he has a surplus of levels and items, and I have a surplus of actual money. But then there's this whole argument, well, you didn't earn it yourself, It's like starting a game of Monopoly and just buying Boardwalk. It's like it's cheating.
Yeah, and I guess that really is the argument. There's those people that like Eliminator or myself that feel that anything that you do in the game itself you should have earned within the game, and then there are those people that do have that argument of time, and they have the money to more or less buy the time, as it were.
They should have little asterisks next to their name when they if they did that though, like in baseball.
Yeah, if they actually allowed it. You could have a little glowing thing over your head, like this character bought his last 20 levels or something. One other question about the realms and the trading issues. Do you guys know how many servers there are for WoW? I mean, hundreds, right?
Hundreds, yeah. I think for like the U.S. alone, I think there's over 120.
And that has a big effect upon the trading population because there's only, how many people on a server? 10,000, 20,000 active, high-level characters or whatever?
They've never given official numbers as to how many people, but yeah, I think there's been a whole bunch of like survey sites and things like that give that like a high population realm between Horde and Alliance would probably have somewhere between like 20-30,000 people.
As you pointed out, it can be hard to find what you want in the auction house, and that's with 120 realms just in the U.S. And the obvious comparison is Diablo II, which had 2 realms in the U.S. Mm-hmm. So can you imagine a WoW auction house that had, 80 realms on the same auction house? I mean, would it just be completely unusable?
I think the way the items work in Diablo would kind of help the situation a little bit because of the fact that everything's so random that if they had a robust searching system where you can really get down into the nitty-gritty and look for very specific items, it would help. But I think it would still be kind of over-saturated.
That would cause prices to really drop. I mean, if you had 80,000 people selling wind forces at once, I think they'll have to break up Diablo III into multiple realms for trading in some way.
Yeah, it's like if you had it that large, the system would still work. It's just everything would be a very diminished value. It would be a buyer's market because all the sellers would be competing with one another. But like Eliminator said, one of the things that they could probably actually do to have the larger servers, or larger, not have 129 but have more than 2, is just because of the fact of the randomness of how hard it is to find, that perfect ring. Like a Bull Kathos with 5% lifesteal. How many of those are out there and how expensive they are versus, being flooded with a whole bunch with, 3 or 4% lifesteal.
I think they'd really have to go into the system where they'd have to break up regions a little more. Like they'd have to have just more regions to really slow that process down a little bit.
Yeah, maybe they'd have, USA 1 through 20 and you could enter I don't think it would lock your character into playing on just that region, but maybe you'd have to choose which one you're going to trade in. You couldn't post the same item in 10 different regions kind of thing. I've been wondering what role, like, trade value forums will have, if people will really want to check that. I guess you don't really need that in WoW, because you could just kind of see what things are selling for via the auction house pretty easily.
Yeah, but the auction house will give you, what your prices are, and, and you have add-ons, which of course won't exist in Diablo, but you can also see what average item prices have been for, X amount of time.
I remember being very vexed occasionally trying to trade with someone who thought that their item was worth vastly more than it was. Like a new player or something, they'd find one good item and just want the world for it. And you're like, dude, you're asking twice what this is worth. And they didn't know that. There's really no way to explain it to them. But I guess an auction house makes that pretty simple.
But, even like in World of Warcraft, you'll still see dozens of people a day asking how much is this worth in the trade channel, because that item, might be a rarer, lower level item that people might need for crafting or leveling up their profession, but because it is rare, you don't see it as often. They don't see any in the auction house, and they just ask in the trade channel. Also, a whole bunch of websites actually track the average cost of items in the auction houses across all realms, and so you could go to a website and just type it in and see what it's like as the going prices across the whole U.S. or on a specific server, what it's been tracking it for.
Anything's better than what Diablo 2 has.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Anything's better than Diablo 2, and I really hope that they just have a system in which you can stay inside the game and still be able to trade.
There have been some people that have, tried to do price gouging or tried to monopolize the market, and it just doesn't work. Even on a small realm like my own, where there's not even like 8,000 people horde side, that people have tried and they've always failed. They get tired of it within a few days, and it's like as long as you can hold out for a day or two, for getting that one particular item that you might need to get your last skill point and, tailoring or whatever, or you can go out and farm it yourself, that the prices will return to normal eventually. Or even if someone is attempting to gouge or monopolize the market, it's a trade opportunity for yourself, because instead of sitting and complaining that, wool cloth is too expensive, I'm going to go out and I'm going to farm wool cloth and I'm going to put it up half of what he has. I'm going to make a ton of money. Because everyone's going to buy it from me because that guy's trying to gouge the market.
You guys probably saw the news yesterday, I think it was, where there's going to be a Blizzard fan site summit for Diablo 3 in late July, and they said they're going to get an announcement of a new Battle.net feature. We don't know what that is, but it seems pretty likely that will be an auction house. If you guys have any thoughts on that?
Not really. I mean, they already have the system in place via the iPhone app for WoW. If they do it cross game, I guess it'd be, interesting.
Well, you can't trade D3 items for WoW items.
Well, just that you'd be able to say if you were in Diablo 3 and you wanted to buy something for a character in WoW, and you were able to bring up some sort of menu through Diablo 3 that linked you through Battle.net, and you were able to still buy stuff through there.
There might actually be D3 to WoW trading. Not, via Blizzard, but there's people who have, enormous quantities of cool stuff built up in World of Warcraft, and maybe they want to start playing Diablo 3. So, you find some kid who's been playing a lot of D3, and it's like, hey, I'll give you a level 80 paladin for, I guess you can't just sell your character, but, there's some equivalent of stuff you could give away.
I'm sure there'll be people that will try, and, do something like that. I don't mean so much try, but just that will do it, or at least try to do it. Find someone that will buy their character for something in Diablo or trade some other item.
Well, you sold gold for Killzone, so that's.
It's true, yeah. He ended up getting the better
different
end of that deal, anyways. I'm glad I didn't spend $60 on the game.
Okay, guys, that's. I think that pretty much covers the auction house. Any last thoughts on that, or are we good?
I think we're good.
Huh? Yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on it, at least. Moo. I guess we missed the moo.
Moo?
Moo.
Moo moo moo.
Are there any cows in World of Warcraft, by the way?
Yes.
Other than Taurens?
No,
yeah,
there's cows.
There's cows.
Can you click them and do they moo?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the Blizzard thing in every game.
Yeah, they're little critters though. They're nothing quite comparison to the hell bovine. They're there kind of for ambiance and nothing else.
Are there cowlocks? Aquatic, tentacled, swimming bovines? Or cows?
No.
Maybe that'll be at BlizzCon this year. They have the cowlock. The secret cowlock level.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. Thanks for the chat.